Welcome back to The Division 2. It feels like it's been quite a while since I've actually sat down and done one of these videos. I've been really into my live streaming at the moment and then sharing stream highlights and stuff. It's been an absolute blast and I'm going to continue doing it. But I thought whilst I've got a little bit of spare time, I'll sit down and actually just do a video where I talk to you guys about what's currently going on in The Division 2. I do have some other videos lined up, it's just when I can get around to doing them. And I'm incredibly concerned for the loot in this game. It is not getting any better at all. If anything, it's actually getting worse. I did data collection shortly after TU11 was released, with the summit and everything like that. I went back and I revisited it from summit to the open world. And now that I've done all of my data collection, I've been noticing that there are a lot more rainbow drops. Not only that, but there's also a lack of loot in a lot of areas. Sometimes you're getting loot and it's just terrible rolls even for heroic difficulty. Legendary's not dropping much at all. And that's legendary in the strongholds and the summit game mode as well. It's incredibly weird because we're trying to figure out and see if there is a theory behind it and how the loot works. But it just seems as though it's all purely based on RNG. And there is a huge factor of RNG. Like the range of one day you could log on and possibly get like 10 to 15 items that are going to go into your inventory and you're going to use them across several builds. And then you could log in every single day for 2 or 3 weeks, possibly even up to a few months. And you'll find absolutely nothing that is of use to you, your builds or anything like that. One thing I've spoken to a couple of people about, I think is a very, very good idea. I can't see the developers adding it in, but it'd be cool if we had a clan sharing feature. So if I was to run, let's say, Air and Space Museum, and I got a tardigrade drop at the end and I don't want it, I can put it into this like little mailbox sort of thing, and then if there's anyone in the clan that wants that piece of gear, they can just grab it out. There are so many things I get that are not of any use to me but could be to other players, and I don't think it's fair that it just goes to waste because I don't need it. But we've been looking for a perfectly rolled Providence backpack. Not the gift, just we want weapon damage, crit and crit chance, max rolls. And then we want vigilance on the bag. And that's for Lewis. And we've been going for it, I'm going to say almost every day for the last couple of weeks. And he was grinding for 5 hours, never got it. Me and Con helped him for an hour, never got it. As soon as we left the party, I got one. That's the bag that I'm currently using. But we've been farming for it for Lewis ever since. We've not had any luck. We've also been going for chests with Obliterate, 2 of them Providence pieces, and we haven't had them. We had one which was okay, but it could have been a lot better. We've also been looking for a perfect sacrifice for a skill build for Pete, and we just can't get it to drop. And I mean, some days we're only playing an hour to 2 hours or something, but other days, like on Saturday, I did a 5.5 hour live stream and we got absolutely nothing. So the loot is incredibly inconsistent. There's a lot of bugs happening within the game. There's game breaking bugs within the summit. We've just recently had a rogue agent in Lincoln Memorial spawn out of the mission area completely. And it's just crazy how different the loot is every single time you play the game. There's not a single bit of consistency within that loot. But one thing I do believe makes it a lot worse, and I believe this is something the developers have a much easier time controlling than the loot aspect, and that's the enemies that spawn in your missions. We've been noticing we only ever play heroic or legendary. If we're doing normal like open world main missions, it will be heroic. If we're playing district, 9 times out of 10 is legendary. The summit, we only really play from floors 81 to 100. And then when they release 11.1, we're going to be live streaming our attempts from 1 to 100. Legendary, all 9 directives. But playing on heroic difficulty, it's supposed to, as you progress up difficulties in this game, it's supposed to spawn in higher veterancy enemies. So you're supposed to see less red bars, less purples, you're supposed to see more elites. Although because of the RNG factor even within the enemies, because they're not set spawns for each of the missions, we have seen so many more, and I don't believe this is just RNG. We have been seeing so many red bars during heroic runs. We've had doors that spawn 2 waves of enemies, and both waves have been all red bars. And the way that ties in with loot is, I believe, elite enemies are going to have a better chance of dropping loot for you. The red bars can obviously still do it, but you have a higher chance of getting a loot drop off an elite enemy than any other veterancy. I've also been speaking to Chaka Chaka on Instagram, and he said that he ran Legendary in the Summit for quite a while. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but basically doing lots and lots of floors, like several floors on Legendary difficulty, and the whole time he played, he had a total of 6 items drop. And that's Legendary difficulty. That's supposed to be your easiest way to the best possible loot. So say for example you're playing in the Summit and you're playing over the course of like 12 floors. To get 6 loot drops? That's a little bit, well, I say a little bit, that's much lower than what you should be getting. But I don't know if you guys remember, I'm not going to keep this video going on too much longer, I've said most of what I need to say, but there was one thing that really stood out to everyone, and it's always been used against the developers for the right reasons, but that is, when they released Warlords of New York, they put this big sort of like feature out there that they're going to have meaningful loot. So you're going to get less loot drops, but it's going to be more meaningful, the loot's going to be more valuable, there's a bigger chance of you using it. It seems as though it's gone back to how it was before Warlords, and you're getting that little bit more loot on a regular basis, because as I said, like, you can go through an entire mission and not have any loot drops at all, besides the boss's loot. But it seems as though on a more regular basis, we are getting more drops and they are not worth anything to you as a player. Even for new players that are putting builds together, I've always said this game doesn't have stepping stones. You can't go into normal, get decent gear together, move up to hard, then up to challenging, heroic and legendary. It's not that simple. You kind of have to throw yourself in at the deep end in order to have any chance to kind of progress. Or that's how I've always seen it working. But just the fact that we are still, like, the amount of grinding you have to do, and I've spoken to people that have been looking for these, like, Providence pieces for several months. If I remember correctly, there was 2 different people on stream that said one of them had spent 6 months looking for something, and the other had spent 7 months. So that's a long, long time to be looking for a certain piece of gear. And the fact that it still hasn't dropped. I mean, there are long, long quests in Destiny 2 where you're going for exotics and they're very grindy. But I don't think anything is going to take as long as some of the gear can take to obtain in the Division 2. And I think it needs to be looked at. Something needs to be done about it, because it's not fair to the players. There's absolutely no value in this game for the amount of time we spend in it. Yeah, there's a chance of getting lucky and putting some of your builds together and running legendary difficulty and all this sort of stuff, but for the amount of time people are playing this game for, there is nowhere near enough reward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the video there. I really strongly believe they need to look into the loot, and they need to make some drastic changes very, very fast. It's not fair that it's taking so long to get certain pieces. The rainbow percentages are picking back up again. The rolls on gear is dropping again, and it's all over the place. And they've 100% stealth buffed enemies. We'll talk about that in a different video. I'll leave this one just for the loot. So that's going to do it for the video. I'll be back soon. We'll talk about the enemies. There's a couple of other things I want to do. But for now, let me know all of your thoughts and stuff in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.